The Vatican knows him as the Holy Father. The world recognizes him as a spiritual leader, a man wrapped in white robes with the keys of St. Peter resting in his authority. But few people, very few, know of the strange and deeply emotional past that shaped Pope Leo XVI before he ever stepped into the halls of the Holy See. This is not a story you'll hear from Catholic scholars or in Sunday sermons. It is the journey of a soul who once walked the blood-stained corners of O Block, one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Chicago, before being chosen to wear the crown of the papacy. Was he just a visitor? A missionary? A victim of the system? Or was he a product of the streets who escaped the shadows? What if I told you that long before he became Pope Leo XVI, he was just Brother L, a quiet, book-carrying teen caught between gang violence and gospel dreams? This is the untold and controversial story of Pope Leo XVI's life in O Block, Chicago, a life hidden behind centuries-old robes. And you're not ready for what's coming next? Subscribe for more godly stories that shake the world. Chapter 1: The real name behind the title. Before he was known as Leo XVI, his name was Lamont Xavier Fields, born to a single mother, Teresa Fields, in the heart of Chicago's South Side. She was a devout Christian woman who struggled to raise her child while working 2 jobs. Lamont's father was a local figure rumored to have gang ties, but he vanished from Lamont's life before he turned 5. Growing up in O Block, Lamont wasn't supposed to survive. Most kids around him either got locked up or gunned down before adulthood. Yet Lamont had something different. He had silence. While the other kids carried knives, Lamont carried a Bible, tattered, hand-me-down, and soaked in tears. He would often be seen sitting on the front porch reading scripture as sirens wailed in the background. He wasn't weak, no, he was just focused. Focused on something beyond the streets. He believed God had a purpose for him. But could faith really survive in a place where bullets were more common than blessings? Subscribe to follow Lamont's journey from the bottom. Chapter 2: When the Church Met the Streets. At 13, Lamont had his first run-in with the law. Not because he did anything wrong, but because he was mistaken for someone else. That's how it was in O Block. Being black, young, and quiet made you either suspicious or invisible. It was during his short time in juvenile detention that something shifted in him. An old Catholic priest, Father Donahue, volunteered there, offering Bible study and emotional support. Most kids mocked the old man. Lamont didn't. He listened. And Father Donahue noticed something rare, a boy with questions that echoed like prayers. Lamont didn't just want to read the word. He wanted to live it. When Lamont was released, Father Donahue helped him enroll in a Catholic outreach program. That small act changed everything. It opened doors to a world Lamont never knew existed: theology, Latin, philosophy, but also discipline, peace, and purpose. He still lived in O Block. But now, his room had crosses on the wall. And his mind was slowly being rebuilt. Want more stories of divine transformation? Subscribe for more. Chapter 3: Blood on the Pavement, Prayer on the Lips. At 16, Lamont faced his darkest moment. His cousin, Tyrell, the only family member who truly protected him in the streets, was shot dead in a gang retaliation. It was a rainy night. Lamont held Tyrell's body as his blood soaked through his clothes. People gathered, cried, screamed. But Lamont just prayed. He didn't blame God. Instead, he asked God what he wanted from him. The next day, Lamont walked into the nearest church and sat there from dawn till dusk. Silent. Unmoving. Until the priest found him and whispered, "Your life was spared for a reason." That moment defined the rest of his life. From that day, Lamont began preaching in the streets. Not with microphones, not in churches. But at corners, under basketball hoops, in broken buildings. His sermons were short, raw, and filled with pain. But they were real. Some listened. Some laughed. But all knew Brother L was different. Chapter 4: Escape from O Block, a path nobody expected. By the time Lamont turned 18, he had become a local legend in a quiet, strange way. Not for violence, not for rap battles, not for anything typical of O-Block fame, but because he didn't fall. He didn't get caught in drugs. He didn't carry a gun. He kept his Bible in his back pocket and used his pain to pray instead of retaliate. It confused people. It inspired a few. And it angered many. When Father Donahue nominated Lamont for a theology scholarship in Italy, no one thought it would happen. A kid from the hood walking the cobblestone roads of Rome? It felt like fiction. But the church believed in Lamont. They saw something even Lamont didn't fully understand yet. So, with $50 in his pocket and a cross around his neck, Lamont left O-Block. He wept on the plane. Not because he feared what was ahead, but because he was leaving behind everyone who never made it out. He promised God one thing: if I ever get power, I'll never forget O-Block. Chapter 5. Rome wasn't ready for Lamont. In seminary, Lamont was unlike any student the Roman Church had ever seen. He was black. He was from the hood. He didn't speak Latin fluently. But he understood pain. And he understood the scriptures from a place of survival, not scholarship. His professors were stunned. While other students quoted saints, Lamont quoted street stories and tied them to the Gospels. When he spoke about forgiveness, it wasn't just theory, it was real. His homilies brought even senior bishops to tears. Word spread fast. There's a kid in seminary who preaches like the prophets. He studied hard. He learned fast. And even when racism quietly tried to block his rise, Lamont's light was undeniable. Chapter 6. The Priesthood and the Promise. At 26, Lamont became Father Leo, in honor of his grandmother's favorite pope, Leo the Great. He spent time serving in Brazil, Sudan, and finally back in Chicago, not far from O-Block. He didn't come back with cameras. He came back with bread, water, and the word. He organized youth outreach, rebuilt broken homes, and even helped some gang leaders leave violence behind. He wasn't loud about it. He stayed low-key. But every Sunday, under a broken basketball rim, he'd preach. One of his quotes became legendary in the South Side. Jesus didn't die for the clean, he died for the broken. And I come from the broken. His influence grew. And when the Vatican noticed how entire communities were transforming under his presence, they started watching closely. Subscribe now for more untold truths of spiritual warriors. Chapter 7. The Unexpected Papal Candidate. When the previous pope died, the world looked to the usual candidates: bishops, cardinals, Europeans with long histories in the church. But behind closed Vatican doors, whispers grew: there's a young man from Chicago. Father Leo, the one they call the preacher from the pavement. Many were against it. A pope from O-Block? With a past like that? With skin like his? But others said, this is the kind of man we need. One who understands both power and poverty. One who has lived the cross. In a shocking vote, Cardinal Leo Fields, the boy once known as Brother L, was elected. He became Pope Leo XVI. Chapter 8. The Pope who still walks the streets. Most popes stay in the Vatican walls, protected, distant. But not Leo XVI. He secretly visits poor neighborhoods. He funds schools in the hood. He speaks directly to gang members and calls them my brothers. His first public message as Pope shocked the world. Before I was Pope, I was just a boy from O-Block. Don't let your streets tell you who you are. Let God do that. He visits Chicago at least once a year, never announcing his arrival. He wears plain clothes and speaks to mothers who lost their sons. They call him the Street Pope. And yes, even in the Vatican, he keeps a small brick from O-Block on his prayer table. A reminder of where he came from. A reminder of the lives he still fights for. Chapter 9. Legacy of the Streets. Pope Leo XVI has written more letters to prisoners than any pope in history. He started an underground mentorship program for teens in violent cities across the world. He launched a global initiative called From Pain to Power, where ex-gang members are trained as community leaders and church teachers. He even rewrote some of the traditional church prayers to reflect the cries of people in slums, prisons, and corners. Critics say he's too raw, too emotional, too street. But millions say he's real. And they follow him not because of his title, but because of his truth. And in his private journals, revealed after his death one day, he wrote, "If not for God, I would have died on 63rd. But he called me, not to be great, but to go back and bring others out." A streetlight in the Vatican. Today, Pope Leo XVI still leads the Catholic Church. But more than that, he leads a generation of people who thought holiness wasn't for them. He's a walking contradiction, holy yet hood, divine yet down to earth. And every time he steps onto the Vatican balcony, the people from Oblak know something the rest of the world doesn't. That's our brother. That's Brother L. And he made it out. Subscribe for more real stories that the world hides, where faith, pain, and purpose collide.